Oh my gosh, guys, have you heard the microgreens industry is a scam? A huge scam. Can you believe it? Oh my gosh. I stumbled upon a YouTube video that got posted recently by a channel called Keep On Growing with Mike Van Doozy. And honestly, it's the most ridiculous video I've ever seen. It is so toxic. And at the end of the day, I don't think this content creator and grower even understands what he's doing and why it's toxic. I mean, just think about it. If microgreens and the microgreens industry was a scam, how would the industry be existing in the first place? How would these microgreens farmers be making an income for themselves and their families? And I'll admit, there's been some good marketing online promoting microgreens and promoting it as an opportunity for a business model, but that's a good thing. It's a good thing to be able to grow food, healthy, nutritious food for your local community and be able to make a business out of it. There's so many ways to make money that are just soulless or bad or that literally harm people. I mean, look at everything that's going on in the world. And here we are making videos tearing down farmers. And he is a grower. This guy is a grower and he's tearing down other growers. It's just ridiculous. Let's get into it. I'm gonna rewatch the video right here in front of me and then I'm gonna be commenting on it as we go through. His arguments don't really make sense either. It doesn't really line up, but hey, let's do it. Let's get into this. So he first starts off by saying you may have been tricked by one big hoax, and he puts the definition of trick on here. To deceive, to delude, to hoodwink, to mislead. And just putting this out there for a second because I've already watched this video and he puts a bunch of my thumbnail videos as if I'm the trickster, as if I'm the deceiver and the hoodwinker. And by the way, I've done nothing but be completely honest. Have I been excited about this as an opportunity? Yes. I mean, this opportunity was literally what got me into farming and what got me into entrepreneurship all in one fell swoop. And it absolutely changed my life. And I've been able to teach others how to do this too, and it's changed their lives as well. Now look, microgreens business hasn't worked out for everybody. Not everybody who tries this business model makes it work, but that goes with anything. Just because you want to start a business doesn't mean you're guaranteed to have a successful business. There's infinite amounts of things that can go wrong, and not everybody's going to be successful in their business. I'm so sorry to say that, but it doesn't mean that this industry is a sham or that this business model doesn't work or that I was ever lying. And as a matter of fact, in some of my recent videos talking about should you get into microgreens, is running a microgreens business worth it? I'm pretty honest. I say that it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of effort. It takes time, especially in the beginning, setting everything up. And I've also mentioned multiple times in the past that running a business is the hardest, most difficult thing I've ever done in my whole life. And honestly, not to sound pretentious or anything, but a lot of things in my life have come easy. Like school was easy, college was easy. I didn't have to study very hard. I just did my homework. I got good grades and it came easy to me. A lot of other kids had to study for really long hours. And, I'm able to pick up on things pretty easily. Business, on the other hand, although I've been able to pick up and do pretty well for myself with my different business models, by far it's been the most difficult thing I've ever tried to accomplish. Not even just from doing the business itself, but also from like a mental, emotional standpoint. All right, let's move on. All right. So I'm stopping on a little screenshot here. It says, ending the microgreens industry. This is so toxic. I don't know if this guy is even conscious enough to realize how toxic this is. If this is his desire to end the microgreens industry, does he not realize that he would be putting a bunch of farmers out of business? Farmers who rely on that income to help their families? And by the way, no microgreens farmers are forcing anybody to buy their products. We're simply growing these foods and offering them as a food source that people are choosing to spend money on and then eat. So it's not like we're forcing people to eat this stuff. Like, these customers are buying it from us every single week, week after week, sometimes for years straight. And it's an agreement. We all, nothing's forced here. So this screenshot that I'm on right now, ending the microgreens industry, he's literally tearing down other growers. He's tearing down other farmers. And if this was to happen, if the microgreens industry ended, it would have such an impact on all of these farmers who have successful microgreens businesses who are using this revenue to support their families. We've experienced some hard things in the past 4 years, especially back 2020, 2021, with people losing their jobs and the impact of this on people's mental health, on their emotional health. And now this guy's like, let's end the microgreens industry. It's blowing my mind, but moving on. The big lie.
A quick Google search for how to make money selling microgreens.
How to make money selling microgreens.
Brings up countless videos of people claiming
That's me.
lots of money.
That's Dave, that's me.
Tiny plants. Not from a massive garden, but rather a spare bedroom.
Yes, you can make money selling plants from a spare bedroom. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that an amazing thing?
They also boast that it does not require but a few hours a week.
A few hours per week. Well, honestly, when you run your own business and you're able to grow it enough to have enough revenue coming in to hire somebody else to do some of the work, yes, it only takes a few hours per week. For instance, on my microgreens business, I work literally 3 hours per week right now running my business. And I believe this past year I did $80,000 in revenue, which is a little lower than I want to be. I want to be above 100,000. But yeah, I literally work 3 hours per week and it runs my microgreens business and it pays for my rent here to rent this house, and it will pay for a big chunk of my mortgage once we buy this house this year. And it also provides a really nice income for Alyssa, who's actually doing a lot of the work herself. So I pay my partner, Alyssa, to do a lot of this work. So she puts in way more hours than me at this point. And that allows her to stay at home where she wants to be, do work on her own time, and run a microgreens business, which we feel really good about. I don't know about you guys watching these videos, but I feel really good about running my microgreens business, and I don't feel bad about teaching others about this business model as well.
Basement, or even just a closet.
Yes, basements and spare rooms and closets, that works, especially to get started. You can totally get started in a closet. And my current business is probably my favorite. This is probably my favorite farm I've had so far, is the farm that I have right now, which I'm running from the basement of this house, which has tremendous benefits, no commutes, and the tax implications are pretty awesome as well, because a big portion of this house is now being used for business, which is converting your home, which is usually a liability, which only costs you money. You're not making money with your home, and you're going off to work every day, leaving your home, not even being able to enjoy your home. So 8 hours of work, right? Working your 9 to 5, plus your commute. So that's another probably hour between both sides of the day. Then you have probably 8 hours of sleeping, that you're just sleeping in your home. So most people have these homes that they're barely even enjoying, and it's a complete liability because it's not making money, it's only costing them money. So it's an amazing idea, revolutionary idea, I suppose, to be able to run a business from your home and also to grow food from your home. Like, that's amazing. So not only are we able to grow food for ourselves, healthy food that we're able to grow for ourselves, dirt cheap, inside our home, very resilient. We're able to eat that food, increase our health, lower our food costs, and then if you're able to make it into a business, now you can generate revenue for your family to help pay for your other costs of your life. Seems good to me.
Really? The only equipment they need is a spray bottle and a pair of scissors.
Nobody has said that the only equipment you need is a spray bottle and a pair of scissors. I've never seen anybody say that, so I don't really know where he's getting that from. Then he goes on to say that a farmer needs massive equipment and tons of labor, but as he's showing clips over this video, it's showing like large-scale agriculture with tractors and big pesticide machines and stuff like that. Like, that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about microgreens farming, which is a completely different business that does require less labor. It's quite a bit more lean, and you don't need any of that crazy big equipment. So he just said he's been growing microgreens for 10 years, so he's a microgreens grower himself. Huge misunderstandings that have been regurgitated over and over, only to solely benefit the microgreens farmers and not benefit you.
If you've ever shopped for microgreens or tried to grow your own, a lot of questions probably popped into your head. And today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the secretive microgreen community. And
yes, let's pull back the curtain on the secretive microgreens community. Blindly accepted what have been fed to them and pay $50 per pound. $50 per pound is quite expensive. Nobody's paying that price per pound unless you're like a restaurant and it's a very light, high-end variety, like something like cilantro. So I personally sell my sunflower and peas for $22 per pound. And honestly, I think that's a good deal, and it must make sense because my customers purchase it from me every single week and don't complain about the cost. Now, embedded in my pricing is also my service. So in business, you make money, you generate revenue for yourself by selling products and or services. In this case, the product is the microgreens, the physical microgreens themselves. And depending on the business model, my business model at least, I have a great service where I actually deliver it to the customer's home every week. So that's like the service side of my business. And people happily pay for these greens. Not just for my business, but from all the different microgreens farmers. People happily pay for these greens. They enjoy the flavors of them, they enjoy the health benefits of them, and also just a peace of mind getting your greens in week after week. Because life is busy, life gets tricky, life is hard, and to be able to have a service where you just get these fresh, high quality, nutritious greens dropped off at your doorstep every week, and then as a reminder, you just have to get through that box every week, that works. That's really good for people, and that's kind of why I started this microgreens business and this specific model in the first place, was to help people. Others struggle with growing their own because they've been taught a tedious process. I've only taught processes with efficiency in mind. The processes that I teach are literally designed to make it as easy, fast, and streamlined as possible with the least amount of error and the least amount of inputs and time and energy and effort required to get these high quality greens grown. And what's the funniest thing about that statement from this guy is, because I've already seen this video, I know the methods that he's gonna be showing later on, either in this video or another video, and they are the most tedious methods I've ever seen that take a tremendous amount of time, where he's growing in sand and then has to rinse off the microgreens, which also reduces your shelf life, by the way, and then rinsing off the sand to reuse it, and it's like a very tedious process. So already it's very hypocritical, and I don't really like making like videos. I'm basically criticizing this guy, which I don't like to do. It's not really something that feels great to me, but I do feel very strongly about this industry. I feel very strongly about the impact that these greens can have on your health. I feel very strongly about the impact that running your own microgreens business from home can have on your life, just like it's had such an impact on mine, my girlfriend and future wife, and other people who I've taught. So that's really why I'm making this video. It's not as much to rag on this guy, although I'm gonna be ragging on this guy because what he's putting out is absolutely horrendous and ridiculous. Honestly, downright harmful and toxic to the community as a whole, to farmers as a whole, and to growers as a whole. And by the way, if we can't come together as growers and farmers and help each other and lift each other up, how are we gonna make it through this world? Like, we already have a world that's been set up to conquer and divide us. And if we can't even come together as a growing community, a community of farmers, people who should be of a higher consciousness, a little bit more enlightened, a little bit more in touch with nature and how this reality works, like, how are we gonna make it in this world, guys? We need to be coming together and supporting each other, not tearing down industries and tearing down farmers for no other reason than to make a trendy YouTube video. Like, come on now.
It goes against nature by cramming thousands of seeds together in a tiny tray.
Goes against nature by cramming thousands of tiny seeds together in a tray. Well, literally, this is the way you grow microgreens, and your seeding density should be kind of dialed in there where it's not too much and not too little, so you get a high quality crop. And in nature, I don't think this is too far off from nature. When a seed pod falls on the floor, on the ground, all of those seeds are gonna be in one condensed little area. All these seeds are gonna grow, and the best ones are gonna make it. This is how nature works. The strongest seeds make their way through, and it only benefits the DNA of that crop into future generations because the strongest ones make their way through, and that's what DNA carries on. So I don't really see a huge problem with cramming a lot of seeds into a tray. It's how microgreens are grown. It's how you're able to get higher yields. But I do kind of want to think about both sides of the equation here. The downsides of these microgreens is, yes, they are grown in a little bit of an unnatural state. They're grown inside. They're grown under artificial lights more often than not. And they're harvested at a very young age, normally before you would be harvesting your crop. Typically, you're letting those seeds grow out into more of an adult phase of the crop, and then you're harvesting the floret or the fruit or the leaves or whatever part of that crop, depending on the crop, or the roots for root vegetables. So yeah, it's a little bit abnormal. You are using a lot of seeds to do the process, but at the end of the day, using a lot of seeds, you're actually supporting other farmers that grow seeds for a living. There are farmers out there that specifically grow seeds. These are seed farmers. And at the end of the day, we want to be supporting farmers. We want farmers to be able to flourish to their highest degrees. So in my eyes, using more seeds is just helping seed farmers as well. But look, I'm not saying microgreens are perfect. They're definitely not perfect. And especially when you get into the growing mediums, which I think he's going to talk about in a second, a lot of us are using peat moss-based growing mediums, which is, yes, a renewable resource, but it takes a long time to be recreated. And it's coming from peat bogs, oftentimes in Canada, and the peat bogs, theoretically over time, will get depleted and won't be able to grow at the same rate that we're using it, theoretically. So his idea of using sand to grow the microgreens is actually pretty cool. I like that personally, but from an efficiency standpoint, and especially when you're talking about running this as a business, it's nonsense. It doesn't really make any sense at all. At the end of the day, the best way to grow food is really, yes, getting back to nature, using the natural sunlight, putting plants into the ground, and using Earth's energy, Earth's resources, the biodiversity of the soil, the magnetic and electric forces that the Earth has to offer that goes up and into the plants. This is how nature works outside. So I'm not saying that microgreens are perfect and the end all be all. I think that sunlight and growing outside is better. But if you can mix a little bit of technology with nature and be able to create a business model that supports you and your family while also bringing health into the local communities, I think that's a win. He's basically arguing that the process is tough and the product is desirable, like as if we're like making our processes difficult on purpose to therefore then increase the perceived value and be able to charge a higher price. That doesn't make sense. That's like the opposite of efficiency, which is what I'm obsessed with. And then he pops one of my thumbnail videos over this video as he's saying that, which isn't what I stand for at all. And clearly this guy hasn't watched my videos, because what I stand for is efficiency. The definition and the formula for efficiency is output divided by input. So you want to be able to put in the least amount of inputs to be able to get the greatest amount of results or outputs. That's efficiency in a nutshell. So I've always tried to make it as easy as possible and streamlined as possible for us as microgreens farmers. So that way we're putting in the least amount of energy, the least amount of resources to create our crops. And it has nothing to do with a correlation between the work that we're doing and the prices that we're selling them for. There's no correlation at all.
The perceived value goes up. It's a brilliant marketing strategy.
Brilliant marketing strategy.
Microgreen growing community. Some of the questions will...
The microgreen growing community is not using that strategy as a marketing strategy to promote their products. That's not even true. And again, like this guy's like points, just they don't line up, they don't make sense, and the whole video is just very hypocritical. This guy keeps on talking about how expensive the microgreens are and why they cost so much. At the end of the day, not everybody wants to grow their own food. Not everybody wants to do that. I personally think that everybody should be growing their own food, but not everybody wants to grow their own food. A lot of people are busy and don't want to deal with that. A lot of people don't want to take that on as a new hobby, and people aren't drawn to it. So if people want to pay a farmer to grow microgreens and deliver it to their home, why is that a bad thing? And are they really that expensive? What about other crops? Other things are expensive. Other crops are expensive. The prices on all food are rising. Look at the price of eggs right now. Egg prices are through the roof. So it's really not just microgreens. And at the end of the day, I don't think microgreens really are that expensive for what they are.
There.
All right, so he's talking about the life cycle of a plant. I agree with everything he said there. He pretty much nailed it and explained what microgreens are. They're really just a very young stage of the plant.
They're not a distinctive type of plant but a specific growth stage.
They're not a distinctive type of plant, but specifically about the growth stage. And yes, that's absolutely true. And I don't think anybody in this industry is claiming otherwise. Well, hold on, I gotta watch an ad so this guy can make a few pennies while I watch this garbage video. So he's talking about the seeds and if microgreen seeds are different from normal seeds. And he's saying that they are the same seeds. The only thing that microgreen seeds have to be is clean and untreated. And actually, this isn't a requirement, by the way. The seeds can be dirty and they can be untreated. Not saying that's what you want. I wouldn't want dirty or treated seeds for my microgreens operation, but it's not necessarily a requirement. And yes, the seeds for microgreens are technically the same for normal crops. The big difference here, though, when you're buying seeds from a company that they're rated for sprouting, is that they're typically untreated, yes, which is great because we are harvesting them close to the seed. So because they're so young when they're harvested, they're short and the crops are very close to the seed. Whereas if you have a tomato that grew from that tiny seed, grew into a huge plant, you're picking the tomatoes, they're so far away from that seed that there wouldn't really be a big chance of any sort of contamination or anything like that. So yes, untreated, sure, I like it. 2, the seeds that we're buying for microgreens are tested specifically for germination. Hopefully your seeds are germinating really well anyway. So is there really a big difference here? No, and I also think that yes, this can be slightly scammy. To give this guy a point, theoretically you can use just any normal seeds to grow your microgreens. If they have a high germination rate, you're probably good to go. The third thing for sprouting seeds or microgreen seeds is that they're triple tested for pathogens, which I think is kind of the most important part because of what I said before, how they're so close, the seeds are close to the actual crop that you're harvesting. You don't want these seeds to be contaminated. Not to mention you don't want the seeds, if they're contaminated, to be contaminating your equipment that you're then using for your processes in your microgreens. So this is probably the biggest, most important factor is that they're triple tested for pathogens like E. coli, salmonella, and things like that. I think that's a bonus. I think it's way more important for sprouting compared to microgreens, but these are some of the differences between the sprouting seeds and the normal vegetable seeds. But overall, I'm gonna agree with this guy. They are the same seeds, and they actually originate from the same sources. Seeds are a commodity, and all the seeds originate from this commodity source of seeds, where they're sold just in massive bulk, and then from there, they're filtered down into quality, and then also potentially tested for pathogens and stuff like that, and then sold as something like a microgreen seed. By the way, the price of microgreen seeds, if you buy them in quantity, you can actually get your prices down way cheaper than something like a seed packet. I see these seed packets with barely any seeds in there that are used by vegetable gardeners that are like $7 for a packet or $6 for a packet. And those are so expensive. Like I'm buying 55-pound bags of seeds. When you look at the rate that you're paying like per seed, it's drastically cheaper. So I think what's most important here is that you're looking at the quantity of seeds that you're buying compared to the price. And this really goes for anything, right? This goes for any industry. When you buy more quantity of something, the pricing is typically going to be less. You're going to be spending less money per unit when you're buying in higher quantities. So he's saying the difference is not the seeds themselves, but the process and the marketing. So I completely agree here. He's saying to buy the seeds from a qualified seller, and he's totally promoting Greener Harvest Seeds right here. So I don't know if this is a sponsored video or what's going on, but he really is driving home that Greener Harvest Seeds, this is what he's putting in the picture, that these are the seeds to use. These are the high quality. And by the way, that company hasn't been around longer than a year or two. So now he's talking about if there's superfood. And he's saying maybe this is the result of the high price. So he quotes the FDA. I'm glad he has so much trust in the FDA, but he says that the FDA says there is no definition for a superfood. So okay, superfood. It's just a trendy term. I agree with it as well. Superfood, trendy. Sure, made up word. Doesn't mean the microgreens industry is a scam though. No correlation here. He's talking about superfoods and talking about spinach with Popeye and then kale being marketed and then Brussels sprouts and really ragging on these foods, which I don't think they're all that bad. Also, one of my favorite aspects of kale is because of all those like little folds in the leaves, when your body digests that, a lot of the microbiotics A lot of the positive bacteria and probiotics on those leaves actually make their way all the way through your digestive tract to the end of your digestive tract, which is important to get probiotics from these plants down in that part of your digestive system. So that's one of my favorite parts about kale. I think kale is fine. I think kale is cool.
The marketing, people are now roasting them and smothering them with...
I think this guy really hates the idea of marketing, even though in his YouTube videos, he's using marketing in, honestly, I think not even the best, most kosher ways. Now he's being cheeky and saying, do microgreens lose their super ability as they mature? Basically saying, why are they superfoods only when they're young? Well, the nutrients and the vitamins are more concentrated in their youngest form. It still has a lot of that energy that was in the seed, that life force that was in the seed that bursts it into life. The perfect food for the seed, just like humans, the perfect food for a newborn baby is the mother's milk. A lot of that is present still in the plant when it only is that young. And it's well known that microgreens are very high in nutrient density, vitamins, antioxidants. It's very true. He says that we're failing to recognize that it's by weight, and that to get 8 ounces of broccoli, you could eat a little bit of broccoli, but to eat 8 ounces of broccoli microgreens, it would be by a full tray. And then he goes on to say that people are only using it as a little garnish. Well, that's not always completely true. I have customers who are eating copious amounts of this stuff as a main part of their diet. And when you eat it in that way, you really are getting that boost of nutrition into your diet because you're able to eat so many plants. So much of that young, vibrant nutrition is getting into your body when you're eating these microgreens in quantity, not just a little garnish. The chefs are using it as a garnish. Some people are as well, but the way to eat this stuff is to use it as like the main component of a salad, if you will. And if you were to harvest 8 ounces of microgreens off of your tray and make a salad with that as the base, that can definitely make up a whole salad, and you could definitely get your 8 ounces of microgreens, of broccoli microgreens, into your body. He's also saying that, oh, we love to throw out the highest number of concentration. We all say, yes, microgreens can be up to 40 times more nutrient dense than their adult counterparts. This is true, but he's saying that we love to throw that number out, but it's specifically for broccoli. Broccoli is the most nutrient dense of the microgreens when it comes to this like multiplication factor, which I also agree with. But is it really that bad that we're saying, yes, microgreens can be up to 40 times more nutritious than the adult counterparts? We're talking about microgreens as a whole, and if you look at broccoli, yes, the broccoli can get up to 40 times the nutrition. Nobody's lying. You know, if you're talking to a customer about this, I wouldn't say that they all... Actually, as a matter of fact, when I talk to customers about this, I say that broccoli is the most nutrient dense, and broccoli is where you get that crazy number, that 40 times the nutrient density. So, I don't know, like, I think this is a silly argument. I think he's just finding things to rag on about microgreens in the microgreens industry. I don't think that this is even really that valid, and it's a fact that microgreens are very nutrient dense.
You've probably heard from microgreen growers, myself included, boast that some, not all, microgreens have up to 40 times the nutrient value.
Some, not all, have 40 times the nutrient value. Yes, that's fine. What's wrong with that? What we always like to throw out is the best one. Yeah, that kind of makes sense. And what we fail to mention is it's by weight.
Weight.
Come on, dude.
It's not unheard of to sit down and eat 8 ounces of broccoli.
They're a healthy addition to a balanced meal, not a superfood. I mean, I think we're just picking things apart here, and I think that microgreens do happen to have that concentrated nutrition that I've talked about. I think the main problem he has here is not with microgreens, but with superfoods in general.
You grow, and you can grow it.
And the idea of using superfoods as a marketing tactic. He just went on to compare microgreens and microgreens growing and microgreens farming to normal outdoor farming, and is saying how much easier that microgreens growing is compared to outdoor farming and how the inputs are cheaper and all of this stuff. But I thought in the beginning of the video you said that we're saying that it's so much harder. It's so much harder to grow microgreens, which nobody, I don't think it was ever saying in the first place, but I think this is a little bit contradictory. No nutrients are needed for microgreens, which is, I see it as a great benefit of being a microgreens farmer compared to another farmer. And I also see microgreens as like a gateway crop to get into farming. That's especially what it did for me. It allowed me to get my foot in the door as a farmer, because how else was I going to be able to start a business with not much space, no money, really I had no money at the time. I was borrowing a tiny little corner of my parents' basement to be able to grow this stuff and start a real business. Like, that's an amazing way to get your foot in the door as a farmer if that's something that you desire to be, rather than taking out loans or trying to get a whole bunch of land or whatever you would have to do to become a normal outdoor farmer from the start, starting from scratch and starting from zero. Microgreens are a great gateway crop. He's saying that because we don't have to use the nutrients and the fertilizers, that the microgreens may not be worth that $50. But is the worth of something really based off of the inputs that go into it? Not necessarily. It's actually based on supply and demand, what the customers are willing to pay, and also marketing. Yes, marketing plays an important role with everything. Everything that gets purchased, marketing. Marketing is like the most important aspect of any business. And this guy seriously has such a problem with marketing. But marketing is the #1 skill that you can learn as a business person, as an entrepreneur. So I don't know why this guy has such a problem with marketing. He's saying that microgreens farmers are like making these claims for the reasons why the crops are so expensive, but I have never heard any like microgreens farmers like arguing with potential customers like, oh, our crops are expensive because we have to use soil and it's hard to compost and reuse again. Meanwhile, by the way, the cost of your soil per tray is about 60 cents per tray when you're buying it commercially, which is, for those of you who don't know, you can get $20 to $60 per tray in revenue for your microgreens trays, and your cost of your soil is only 50 cents. So it's not an expensive part of the process. And you're using it fresh every time. You're not typically composting it. And also, composting isn't that hard. I just put a pile of my microgreens waste in the backyard. It breaks down into amazing soil in just a few months. I don't think microgreens farmers are claiming that it's not as easy as it looks either. I think growing microgreens is relatively easy. I think that there's a whole spectrum of people, and on that spectrum, there's people who are naturally very good at things, people who naturally struggle a little bit more with things, people who want a little bit more hands-on help with things, people who want to be more hands-off and just figure it out themselves. So I think it's perfectly fine that we have a spectrum of people with different opinions and values and tastes, and nobody's forcing anybody to do anything here. If people want to buy something, they can buy it. If people want to buy a microgreens course, they can buy it, which is, by the way, how I got started, led to some successes for me. I feel very strongly about buying education before you get into something. I bought a microgreens course, which was the first course I ever took. Allowed me to start a microgreens business. Second course I took was a YouTube course. Allowed me to do YouTube properly and be successful at that. And since then, I've bought courses that have been $10,000. I bought a $10,000 course that allowed me to create $200,000 in revenue over the next year. So I think investing in education is a great thing. And I think that people have the choice to invest in education, and people also have the choice to invest in microgreens. If somebody doesn't want to buy microgreens, they don't have to buy microgreens. It's not like the microgreens farmers are out there forcing people to buy microgreens. Now he's criticizing using weights and heavy concrete blocks, but it honestly just helps the process, and most commercial farmers are using this method. Do you have to do it? Not necessarily, but in my opinion, it improves germination. It also speeds up the process compared to using something like no growing medium, where the roots have to take extra time to weave themselves together before they can start really sprouting and growing upwards, which is an important factor when it comes to efficiency, especially when you're running a business. You want to be able to get the crops growing as fast as possible. You want to be spending the least amount of time to grow these crops, not the most amount of time. And now he's about to come in with his methods. Here's where I come in. Microgreens farmers are using heavy concrete blocks on their microgreens trays. Who wants to do that all day in their kitchen? Here's where I come in.
My mission is to make the whole process as easy as possible. Everyone will know.
My mission is to make the process as easy as possible.
Microgreens are just tiny plants. I'm experimenting on several soilless growing methods.
People will know that microgreens are just tiny plants. Like, no microgreens farmers are ever like denying that or saying anything otherwise. That's literally how we educate our customers. We say they're just tiny young plants. Clay pebbles and sand, which are reusable much quicker than soil. Well, yes, doesn't have to break down in time, but the process of cleaning the sand is actually very tedious and quite ridiculous in my opinion. I would never use sand for growing microgreens if you were running a business. I don't weight any of my microgreens, neither does nature. Like, what? Like, why are we bashing people for adding weight to their trays if that helps improve germination and things like that. Like, I don't understand why this is a bad thing. He's like taking the concrete block aspect and making it a bad thing and saying that this doesn't happen in nature. By the way, actually in nature, when seeds go onto the ground and work their way into the ground and other things decompose on top of it, yes, they are covered, and yes, they have to push up a little bit to get through that top layer of soil to push out and get to the light. So actually this is mimicking nature a little bit, and this is exactly what I teach in my challenge, which is why, one of the reasons why we use the concrete block. It's to help get the roots down, embedded into the growing medium so they don't sprout on top and then end up dying. It's to add a little bit of weight to make them extra strong because they have to push up on it, which makes them just like much stronger crops right in the beginning. Because as they're pushing up on that weight, they're sucking in more water to get stronger, and it just gives them a much better start. And then the other aspect of using the weight that I teach is that it helps to hold in the moisture. You want to be holding in the moisture there during the germination process so your seeds don't dry out, which would be not good for the germination. So I don't really understand why he's bashing the concrete weights so much. Beats me, and most commercial farmers use the weights.
Forcing a plant to do what it naturally does not want to do. Think about it.
Forcing a plant to do what it does not naturally want to do. Actually, at the end of the day, plants don't have like that many opinions. All they're wanting to do is strive and grow to their maximum ability. So actually, in life, if you have a little bit of a struggle and you work through that struggle, oftentimes you come out stronger. So this is what I like to call plant adversity. There's a farmer way down his entire field with cement blocks laying everywhere. Like, dude, get over it. What is the problem with putting some weight on your trays?
As far as having to baby them several times a day, I'm working on several.
Babying them several times a day? That's absolutely not the case. If you're babying your microgreens 7 times a day, several times a day, you're probably not doing it right. You should literally be watering your crops once in the morning, or whenever you like to water your crops. You water them once a day, and that's it. Maybe you have some automation set up in your microgreens farm, which is a little bit more expensive, and you really only need that as you grow your farm a little bit bigger, as you scale your operation. But it's definitely not necessary, and watering your crops once a day doesn't really take that much time. It's not a big deal, and that's really all we're doing over here. The process goes, we make the trays in the first place. It takes about 2 minutes per tray on average if you're quick like me. Then you bring them downstairs, they're stacked in germination. Yes, with that weighted tray on top, with that concrete block on top. Oh no! Then they sit in germination for a few days untouched. You take them out of germination, put them under lights, give them their first watering. Then they sit there for 24 hours until you give them their next watering the next day, and you water them once a day until they're ready for harvest. That's it. Very simple.
Self-watering systems, making it basically a set it and forget it way to grow.
Now he's talking about his set it and forget it systems, his self-watering systems, which cool. He created some self-watering systems. I think it's pretty neat. I think it's efficient, so you don't even have to really like think about your microgreens. But is this applicable on a commercial scale? No, this is really for home gardeners who want to grow some of their own food at home. Also, he's using things like plastic soda bottles and stuff, which, I don't know.
As far as having to baby them several times a day?
Not my favorite materials to use. Also, he's talking about like farmers having, like, do farmers have concrete blocks weighted down everywhere in their fields? Like, no. And also he's like alluding like the way we're growing microgreens to how it's done in nature. He said in the beginning of the video, who's criticizing using a ton of seeds per tray, but he's doing the same thing in his methods as well. Like, you're using a lot of seeds in a small amount of area. That's how you grow microgreens. And where in nature does nature put a bunch of like little plastic bottles everywhere that self-water the crops? I don't know. I haven't seen that anywhere in nature. If you guys have, please let me know, maybe down in the comments.
I'm working on several self-watering systems, making it big.
I'm working on several self-watering systems with a link below in the description. Just a hunch, but I'm guessing that when you go to the self-watering system, so it brings you to an Etsy page. He has a mason jar adapter for self-watering that you can buy from him. So he's basically ragging on microgreens farmers, ragging on a whole industry, which literally has nothing to do with growing your own food at home and growing your own microgreens at home. Nothing to do with it. He's ragging on that whole industry to then at the end of the video get you to go to his Etsy page and buy these cheap chintzy little plastic things that help self-water the trays. And by the way, we were talking about like, oh, he basically says that are microgreens really worth this price? The inputs are less. And he's basically alluding to the fact that the price of something should be directly related to the cost of something. Meanwhile, these little plastic pieces, he's selling for $20, $18 that screw onto a mason jar, this little piece of plastic. That's not worth that money. These are super expensive for what it is. Literally one for $18. Holy cow. You might as well just take the time out of your day once in the morning to just add a little water to your trays. So honestly, like, I'm really not liking this guy. I think he's slimy. I think that his tactics, his marketing tactics are horrendous. I think he's tearing down a whole industry just to try and make a point that doesn't really make sense. Nothing is really correlating in this video. And he's basically ragging on microgreens farmers for using concrete weights to then sell his really expensive little cheap plastic Etsy products. I'm just confused. Like, I'm a little confused about this video and this guy's integrity. And also what confused me as well was the comments. Like, he's actually getting positive responses in the comments, like a bunch of brain dead people saying, yeah, the microgreens industry is a scam. Like, his points in the video don't even make sense. When people see that microgreens are healthy plants, not superfoods, what's the difference? Microgreens are healthy? Are you saying they're healthy or they're not healthy? Like, what's the problem here? Superfoods? It sounds like superfoods, the word superfoods, and the way that's being marketed, it sounds like that's your problem here. You have a problem with superfoods and the way that that word is being marketed. Nothing to do with microgreens, because you're actually growing microgreens yourself and trying to sell your little products for self-watering.
But they're easy to grow. The only thing microgreen growers will be saving you is a little time.
The only thing microgreens growers will be saving you is a little time. Well, no, you actually have to take space to grow the crops. You have to learn how to grow the crops. You have to spend the energy and the little bit of time every day, the attention that you need to remember to grow the crops. If people don't want to grow their own food and people don't want to grow their own microgreens at home, they have the option of buying microgreens from a microgreens farmer. That makes sense. That's good. There's nothing bad or wrong about that, and nothing in this video proves that that's bad or wrong either. I think this guy is trying to get more people growing their own food and growing their own microgreens, which I agree with as well. If you want to grow your own microgreens at home, grow your own microgreens to your heart's content. Grow the hell out of those microgreens. If any one of my customers wanted to grow their own microgreens instead of buying from me, I would be very pumped. I would probably give them a few trays for free. Like, this doesn't make sense, and it's I'm frustrated. Like, this is frustrating. This guy is knocking an industry for no reason. He's calling out me specifically, by the way, too, with all these little thumbnails popping up on the screen, which aren't bad. Like, yes, you can make $3,000 a week. When at my peak of my microgreens business back in 2021, I was making $3,000 a week as a farmer growing microgreens for my local community. That's awesome. That's an amazing thing. And he's like ragging on this industry, and ragging, I feel, a little bit directly on me as well by putting my thumbnails up on the video. Maybe the growers will stop boasting about making thousands of dollars for a few hours of work. Like, that's literally called efficiency. If you could spend 1,000 hours to make $1 million, or you could spend 100 hours doing the same exact thing to make $1 million, what would you do? Wouldn't you spend 100 hours to make that $1 million instead? Like, this is just the basis of efficiency, and I can understand that this guy has no concept of efficiency and the value of his time, because in other videos that I've seen of his where he grows microgreens in sand, it's dirty, it's a complex, annoying process, it takes a lot of time, it's very tedious, and it's actually downright ridiculous.
Learn to grow their own microgreens.
As more people learn to grow their own microgreens, demand for the product will decrease and the prices will drop. Is that what you want? Are you angry that other people have figured out ways to make money by growing and selling microgreens and offering them to their local community? Not forcing people to buy them, but offering them to their local community? It's so amazing that we're able to create businesses as entrepreneurs, and that we're able to create businesses in farming, and that we're able to help communities with these nutritious foods. There's nothing bad about this. Maybe I'm feeling so confused because the points that he's making don't make any sense, and maybe that's why I'm feeling so confused right now. But I'm like a little flabbergasted. And like I said, not everybody wants to grow their own food. They would rather just buy it. And you could say this for not just microgreens, but for anything else. People can buy a few chickens and have them lay eggs, but not everybody wants to do that. Not everybody wants to have chickens and harvest their own eggs. People are gonna go to the store and buy eggs, even though the prices are expensive.
Who knows? Maybe the entire industry will fade away as everyone learns.
Maybe the entire industry will fade away. Why would you want that? Why would you want a perfectly fine farming industry to fade away? Why would you want all the farmers that are supporting their families with their microgreens businesses to fade away? And these points that he's making are not much different than really any of the other crops. Yeah, we will be the change. Hopefully nothing changes in the world of the microgreens industry, because I really don't want to see the microgreens industry crash or crumble or disappear or fade away completely like this guy wants. I want to see it thrive. I want to see us thrive as farmers. I want to see us thrive as growers. And I want to see everybody growing and farming their own food. I want the same thing that this guy wants. And I really hope that I'm able to do this and help people and inspire people to grow their own food without tearing down other people, without tearing down other industries. I hope that I'm able to promote this industry with love and light and without having to like shred others or put other people down. The points are just ridiculous in this video, and this guy should really be ashamed of what he's actually saying here. We need to come together as farming communities. We need to come together as growing communities and help each other and show each other the opportunities that are out there. Making money is not bad. Making money is what we all need to do to be able to live our lives. It'd be great if we lived back in the day when money didn't exist and we could just barter and trade and whatever we needed to survive. But now the way the systems have been set up and the way the world is set up, we all need money. Everybody knows this. And money is one of the things that so many people struggle with and that so many people have such a bad relationship with. Clearly, this man has a very bad relationship with money too, even though he's entrepreneurial and selling his own stuff on Etsy and selling silly little things like mugs and shirts on his YouTube videos. Yeah, more BS that people don't need. It's like, I don't know. This just gets me so irritated. We shouldn't have to bring other people down to prove a point or to make a sale or to do our marketing. It shouldn't have to be like that at all. And of all industries to see this in, I'm really disappointed that here in the growing industry, in growing and farming, this is what we're talking about. This is the videos and the content that's being created. And these are the creators that are out there. I'm really disappointed. So yeah. Anyways, keep on growing. If you like growing and you want to keep on growing, keep on growing. If you don't like growing and you just want to buy microgreens or whatever other produce you want to eat, then support your local farmers, because they make money growing food for you and they love you and they're using that revenue, that energy, that money to support their families and keep their lives living on. So much love to everybody on this channel. Much love to everybody watching. I'm sorry to get a little bit heated or emotional or whatever you want to call it. I'm sorry to even make a video kind of doing exactly what I'm saying you shouldn't do, is ragging on somebody else, but I just had to make a video about this. I don't think this guy, hopefully this guy will see this video and understand it from a different perspective after watching my video criticizing his video, because this is just nonsense and it doesn't make any sense. And we don't have to tear other people down and other industries down and hope that people's jobs disappear off the planet, which is just going to cause more suffering. All right. We need less suffering in the world, more love and abundance. Okay. So keep on growing if you want to, keep on supporting your local farmers if you want to. That's it for now. Much love, everybody. And oh, by the way, the next 2 to 3 videos that I'm gonna make is all about the wonderful impacts that my microgreens business has had on me, on my local community, and also on my partner. So stay tuned for those videos. They're coming up next. And I'll talk to you soon. Peace.